Hello and welcome to the session, everybody. My name is Candadai, and I run marketing here at Origina. This session is all about how Origina is empowering VMware customers gain the freedom, the flexibility, the choice to drive a business-driven roadmap and not be dictated by the vendor and not be forced upon with licensing and support options that don't make sense to you as the customer. So why does it matter most now to VMware customers? What are the options that you have as a VMware customer, and how exactly is Origina going to help you through this journey, through this transition, and taking back that control? To lead us through all this, it is my pleasure to introduce you all to Rowan O'Donoghue, who is the co-founder and the Chief Strategy Officer here at Origina. Rowan, welcome to the session. Good to see you.
Harry, how you doing? Thanks very much. I'm sorry I can't be there in person.
No, that's why I have this chair for you. So, all right, welcome, Rowan. So exciting announcement this morning, Rowan. Fabulous. Can you share with the audience what Origina announced?
Yeah, thanks, Harry. I guess in simple terms, we've announced now a diversification of our support. We're now going to provide support for VMware for a lot of the customers who are struggling, I guess, post the Broadcom acquisition of VMware. They've made a number of changes post that acquisition. And I guess the first one is they've discontinued perpetual software licenses. So it's now a move to subscription licensing. They've also, and this is probably the biggest one, they've kind of withdrawn support maintenance for those perpetual licenses. So now you no longer have the option to get that for your existing perpetual licenses. And I guess another thing that's maybe a bit of a concern is that there's now the transition of some of those support services to the Broadcom distribution partners. So Broadcom is trying to get a lot of the partners to deliver the support itself because they just want to focus on the top 2,000 customers. So I guess there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of concern out there. But today, I guess the most important message is we're there. We're going to provide support for customers and help them with their VMware transition, whatever that may look like.
Great. And you started alluding to it. Rowan, you've been traveling the world. You've been talking to a lot of VMware customers lately. So what are you hearing? What are some of the trends? What pressures are you hearing?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting, Harry. It's I mean, obviously there's a lot of concern, right? There's a lot of anger. I think a lot of customers see this acquisition as very disruptive to their IT strategy. There's a big concern around pricing increases. I mean, I think most customers now have got an idea in terms of what that looks like, and it varies, right? It goes from 300 to 700%. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of our customers who are not in an ELA, particularly where the renewal falls within the next 12 and 24 months. There's also, in terms of part of the transition, there's a bit of a forced bundling in terms of products, in terms of what customers have available to them. So the number of SKUs or part numbers that customers have has now been massively consolidated. So as they move forward, they're going to have to identify how they're going to make most value of that. I do think some of the customers who probably saw this come and locked themselves into 3 and maybe 5-year ELAs to buy themselves a bit of time to understand what does life look like post this acquisition, what are the options available to them. But I don't think there's going to be, like, there's a lot of, if you go online, there's a lot of stuff in the media about this mass exodus. I don't think there's going to be a mass exodus, but I do think some customers will move away from the VMware estate. But I do honestly believe most customers are going to stay with Broadcom, but obviously the challenge is to figure out what is the right fit for their organization. And I think the biggest thing is because it's such a moving target, the sand hasn't settled there. There's so much going on in the marketplace. There's still a lot of unknowns, and I think that is some of the biggest challenges the customers are facing at the moment. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it sounds like of course, a lot of uncertainty, but there are a lot of emotions and anger around the forced move, right? And you know it best, Rowan, the subscription model itself, it may seem, and this is a classic EM strategy, right? While it may seem as if the initial cost is lower, but over time, wouldn't VMware customers end up paying a lot more than what they paid for their perpetual licenses. Is that a fair thing to state?
Yeah, I think the key there is you're just not going to be in control, right? And I think we've seen this not even just with Broadcom, but many other vendors, including IBM, is that typically there's maybe lavish discounts at the very start to get you on board on that journey, but then over time it reverts back to normal price and then maybe price increases after that. So and again, it's even if you look at what I mentioned, touched on there a second ago, it's not necessarily a like for like. You now have to kind of moved into this forced bundling, especially with VCF which is so I think that's going to be a big challenge for customers and a concern as they move forward.
Yep. And you just mentioned it seems like the lack of control is a big theme here, right? Especially if you're moving to a subscription model, you're no longer in control of the upgrades and the updates, and that's all being pushed to you. And that could mean disruption, that could mean unwanted changes, it could mean new bugs. Is that right, Rowan? Is that how you see it as well? I mean, that's a big point of no control.
Yeah, I think if you look at really what's happening here, I mean, a lot of our customers, like VMware made really good products, right? They're very stable. So customers' environments today, and even all the customers I met, their environments are pretty stable, right? And I think for them, it would be great to be able to stay on the version we have and get support for what we have, right? Like that's the starting position for many of our customers. But that choice is being taken away from them, right? And even if there was a renewal option for the existing versions, they're going to have to upgrade to newer versions to get the support. And that is disruptive. And I guess it's now in terms of the question mark of what happens going forward, like what other changes are Broadcom going to introduce? We've seen the refocus where they just want to look after the top customers, which I mentioned earlier on, and as part of that journey, while it's going to be disruptive, what support are we going to get? And I think it touches on the other point I mentioned earlier on is, will a lot of the support being pushed out to distribution partners? Are we really going to get the support and expertise we need? So again, it's all those question marks, Harry. It's a bit of an unknown. It's an unsettling time for a lot of customers. So as you can see, there's a lot of angst. Yep.
And I bet security came up in your customer conversations, right, Rowan? What's the thinking behind that, or what are the concerns, if you will, especially in regulated industries, and especially if you're moving to a subscription model, and if you're being automatically updating the software without the adequate vetting that's needed for certain industries. Did that come up as a big theme in your conversation, security?
I think security is always going to be a big concern for customers, particularly with older versions where a vendor withdraws support for that. Now, I think there was some movements in the press where Broadcom announced that they will provide 0-day vulnerabilities going forward for those customers. But while it's a positive mood, it's just not strong enough, right? And I think I think over the last 6-7 years, why our approach is very different to customers. Obviously, if you look at our IBM business, we don't care what version of the product we support. We say we provide full support, including those security vulnerabilities. But to be able to do that, we've had to develop out our security services offering. We've had to develop out an intelligence community to make sure we get wind of vulnerabilities for the products, to make sure our customers are protected and have mitigations early. It's no different in the VMware space, right? And I think our message is that security is much bigger than a silver magic bullet of a security fix. I don't know if many people saw it, but there was a recent case where a MITRE corporation got affected. I think it was a hack, and they got exposed. And again, it just talks back to the point that a lot of these threat vectors, no security vulnerability or security patch is going to address that. It's because there's weaknesses within the environment, and we need to look at what is the specific, the context around that threat, and how do we help our customers to make sure that they're defended from those, and to kind of move away from that tick box approach where we apply a fix and we're protected, because it's simply not the case.
Yep. Now, this is a good time to transition, Rowan, into how can Origina help VMware customers? What are the different scenarios and use cases, if you will, for VMware customers to consider a move to Origina?
Yeah, that's a good question, and hopefully we have it there on the slides. I think as I see it, there's probably 4 main scenarios. I think a lot of customers, as I touched on earlier on, they will move forward with Broadcom, but they are not going to move the entire estate. Okay, so what's important for them is, because of the price increases, they're going to want to try and understand in terms of what is the right model for us as we move forward. So maybe 25% of that estate, or maybe 40% of that estate may move forward to subscription licensing. But so they need help with right sizing that to make sure, right, let's not bring everything over. And then I think they're going to need assistance with support of the environment which they want to leave on the current versions. And I think we can provide that full support for those. So that's a kind of hybrid scenario where you've got some with Broadcom for the newer items and stuff, but you've got a much bigger estate that maybe you want to keep and get support for the versions you have, keep that stable, keep the lights on, and get good quality support. So I see that certainly as maybe one area where we can help customers. The next one, I think a lot of customers, they probably don't have a roadmap yet, and that would be, the vast majority of customers, because the issue here around the Broadcom piece is, again, not about the technology. It's just that they have this decision now in front of them. What do we do from a licensing and from a support perspective? But the products have been stable. So I think in terms of those customers that have questions around the future strategy, do they stay with Broadcom? Do they move to a different hypervisor? Or what are the other options outside of that? I think we are also seeing a kind of resurgence around the open source, around KVM, etc. Customers looking for more open environments to maybe take control of that kind of roadmap. So I think we can definitely help customers with defining what does that look like. Many customers may already have it defined, or maybe certainly a lot of it defined. I think we can come in and be that soundboard and be that kind of trusted advocate to help them, look at that. Is there a right fit? Help them right size the environments and define what does that successful journey look like for them. I think another point is around migrating to new platform. We touched on it there. I think that we have talked to a lot of customers where they're already in that scenario where they're migrating to a different scenario, maybe open KVM or maybe the likes of Nutanix, for example. I think we can also provide our support in terms of the muscle to actually help with the migration effort. So the team have done a lot of work in this in the past, an awful lot of migrations, and they're very skilled at that. So I think not only providing the support, so if you go naked today or you don't carry forward with your subscription licensing, we can provide support for those products. But more importantly, we can help you with the services that actually help you on that journey as quickly as possible in terms of moving to that new platform. And I think the last one there, which is very interesting, is we've had a lot of customers, and we've also had this in the IBM space, where customers are saying, listen, we're a bit nervous about moving to another vendor for the same thing to maybe happen to us in a couple of years' time, right? And I think every vendor, the industry's going this way, going to subscription licensing. And I think, as you mentioned earlier on, I touched on it, Harry, customers are just not in control, right? So I think there's not so much a revolt, but customers are looking for the ability to run these environments on their own terms, and especially, maybe where we would look after these environments from a managed service perspective, or maybe they're looking at exploring a private cloud. And that is something that we're developing out at the moment to our customers to be able to give them that option, and again, to provide that support around it going forward. So yeah, so I think they are the kind of four areas, I think, beyond just support, I think, where we'll be able to help customers. And again, every customer is going to be different. Like, there's not a kind of a cookie cutter where everyone just fits into the same scenario. Every customer's requirement is going to be different, and I think our support will kind of evolve to that.
Okay, great. No, thank you. Rowan, why is Origina uniquely positioned to provide the services and help customers in all those paths that you mentioned?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I think we've a proven model, one around how we deliver third-party software maintenance for IBM software products. We've done that over the last decade. What many people may not know is that even back in our early business, when we were an IBM business partner, we were also one of VMware's first customers back in the early 90s. So we've had a long heritage in the VMware space as well. And we've also had those skills behind the scenes. So when you deliver support for IBM software products, you also need those skills within the team. So it's always been there. I guess really what we're doing now is we're kind of bringing that to the forefront. And again, no different to our IBM model. We've effectively been bolstering the team, bringing in around pre-sales and the technical capability to be able to have the right resources for customers to provide that quality of support. And again, Broadcom's no different to IBM. We've seen it in the press. They've let a lot of people go, or across the globe, and we've been able to kind of bring in some really good resources from these centers of excellence, and again delivered in an intimate model to customers to make sure to get the support we need. So I think that is combined with the conversation we had around the security. I think we've got a really strong value proposition along with those options I just mentioned a few minutes ago in terms of helping customers provide value around what does life look like after this acquisition.
Great. So Rowan, this is the last segment of the prepared part, and then we have a few questions. So we'll go into that. How can the audience engage and learn more? We have, as you know, we have customers, we have partners, we have prospects listening to this. So what's your advice? What's the next step they can take?
Yeah, well, the first thing is reach out to us. So if you're an existing customer, reach out to your customer success manager or territory manager, and that would be the first thing. If you're one of our partners, reach out to your original channel rep, and we can certainly organize direct enablement sessions with your teams to understand what the service is. And I think if you're not a customer yet and you would love to learn more, obviously we've got a landing page and a website, but we've also set up a dedicated email address, which is quite simply VMware@origina.com. So if you send in a request there, we will follow up and organize a meeting to understand maybe what your requirements look like and how we can help.
Thank you, Rowan. We do have a few questions that the audience submitted, so thank you, audience. We have a few questions that came in as part of the registration process. Let's dive in. Let's see if we can fit 5 of these if possible. The first one, Rowan, is from Monique. Monique's question is, how are companies managing the instability of the VMware relationship? And part 2, what value is being realized with the full use of the VCF product suite?
Yeah, good question. 2 parts. So I think it's there's a lot of still in flux at the moment, right? So customers are trying to figure out. I mean, there's news nearly every day. Customers are certainly, we've seen scenarios where the portals have obviously changed. So we've seen challenges where customers haven't been able to see their entitlements because they haven't been carried forward in the portals. We can see mixed messaging coming from Broadcom. Some customers maybe haven't got their pricing yet. So I think that's going to take a bit of time for it to bed in, right, in terms of what does that look like. But I do think customers are beginning to maybe take from a macro view to understand, okay, well, while that goes on a parallel stream, what does our future roadmap look like, right? And I think I mentioned earlier on, I mean, that's an area I think we can help them with that journey. But onto the second point of the piece around VMware Cloud Foundation, I think the real challenge there is maybe to make sure for those customers that are going to move forward with Broadcom subscription, to make sure you're really maximizing that pack, and to make sure, if you're just using vSphere and vCenter and products like that, and I think this is an area we can help customers is to maybe how you can maximize that investment in terms of the product suite to deliver, I guess, a successful outcome for your business. But I think overall, Harry, I think it's a moving target. It's going to take a while for it to settle. From talking to most customers, I think they do have a solid grip in terms of maybe what their strategy is. But again, there's maybe some unknowns that have yet to play out.
Yeah. And along those lines, the second question from Vibhuti, how is the VMware transition to Broadcom coming along?
Oh, good question. Well, I think we touched on some of those questions already. I think, within customers, I think there's the big concern. I think also maybe to recognize that the partner community have been massively upset. A lot of them are unsure whether they'll have the ability to actually resell, particularly as Broadcom have taken forward those 2,000 customers. But regardless, I think, regardless of whether you're a partner or whether you're a customer, I think the great thing to learn about today is obviously support is available, right? And we can help customers. When we look at, if I look at the broader ecosystem outside of Broadcom, there is a lot of innovation happening in the marketplace. I think there's certainly plenty of options for customers. It's really about understanding in terms of what are those options and what is a good fit for your business, right? So I think separate to I know we've gone off on the question of it, but separate to what's happening with that transition, I think customers are poised that they can take advantage of what's happening in the marketplace to get that good outcome for their business.
Yep. Here's a question from Adam. Keen to understand how Origina can add value to VMware customers experiencing large price increases.
Oh, okay. Well, that's easy. Well, don't trade in your perpetual licenses. Don't move to subscription. No, I think it's I think we talked about some of those scenarios earlier on. I think we've kind of shown those kind of four scenarios where we help customers. I mean, if your journey is that you're going to continue forward with a good portion of the estate, I think what's important there is the right size that environment, right? So because those prices are going to be expensive. But I think it's to get the balance right between what must carry forward versus maybe what's a good fit for maybe moving to third-party software maintenance with an organization like ourselves. There are obviously a lot of organizations out there which we've seen that have offered support for VMware, right? And I think maybe one thing for people to remember, there's a difference between third-party support, which is an overlay on existing support, versus third-party software maintenance, which is what we do. And also maybe an organization that has the credibility and a model to provide that. So I think, yeah, it's we can certainly add a lot of value to those customers that are facing those price increases.
Here's one from Paul. I think these are connected, and you touched upon some of these already, but just in case you want to reiterate, very interested in VMware transition. What are my options? Goes back to the scenarios you laid out, but is there anything else?
No, I think it's maybe just on the point that, I don't think we're going to see that mass exodus. I do think customers, I'd say probably a third of customers that I met already are exploring life outside of VMware. I think that the open environments certainly prevent good options for customers. I think if anything, what's front of mind for a lot of customers is how can we take control of this going forward so we avoid being or end up in a repeat situation where we kind of are being kind of held hostage to the vendors, right? And I think that's definitely a message which has come through strong in any of the meetings in terms of which I've had with customers so far. They're all asking for help. They're all understanding maybe where we can add value, and I think that touches on the private cloud and managed services. I think where we can help customers. But again, from a technology perspective, you also have options outside of that if it's a right fit. But I really think it's about understanding, what are your particular requirements? What does your strategy look like, right? And maybe what's a right fit. So it's unfortunately it's not a one size fits all. Every customer's requirement is unique. But I think, if we separate just the support, I think from a consultancy perspective, going in to help your teams define what that future roadmap is, we can definitely help with that.
Great. I think we can squeeze this last one in, Rowan. This one's from John. Beyond VMware, is Origina planning to support additional platforms that workloads may shift to over time?
Ooh, really good question. And probably a good question to finish on. I think, yes, so I think this is the start of our diversification journey. And again, not just meeting VMware customers, but meeting existing IBM customers. And I think if I step back and again take that macro view, like there's a lot of value we present, but it's kind of very boxed, if you know what I mean, very siloed. We provide support for an area of the customer's estate. A lot of customers, can you provide support and coverage across the wider enterprise IT environment? We've seen a lot of requests for even open source software products, be it Kafka, be it Postgres, be it Open Liberty. We've seen requests for other vendors' products. So I think what I will say is watch this space. This is the first step in that diversification journey. The one thing to remind everyone, we are obviously purely focused on delivering for our customers, not for any vendors. We're agnostic, and it's all about empowering your IT strategy. So yes, we're certainly exploring all of those areas, Harry. So, but the VMware is the first step.
Super. All right. That's all, unfortunately, we have the time for today. Exciting times, exciting announcement. Rowan, thank you for sharing your insights. Audience, thank you all for your interest in the session and all the great questions you submitted. So we do look forward to serving VMware customers and, as I said, helping you gain that freedom, that flexibility, that choice to drive your own business-driven roadmap. And as Rowan mentioned, any questions, anytime, remember, VMware@origina.com. VMware@origina.com.